Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
All right, Craig, are you ready?
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, and welcome to the 4th edition of Podcast versus Everyone. This is Craig Powers of CougCenter.com and also Twitter.com. And with me, as always, is Jeff Nusser. Say hello, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
And we're back to where we started.
That's right. Everything comes full circle.
All right, I'm going to start by saying at the top this week, if you are actually liking this, which I think some of you are, because we had our biggest week of downloads by far.
Yeah.
Go ahead and subscribe and have it delivered. Give us a nice rating, 5 stars preferably. If you don't want to give us 5 stars, just don't give us a rating. In my opinion. But just remember that we don't care. But we do appreciate you listening. But anyway, so Jeff, I know you have big news on the beer front this week.
Yeah, so on Sunday during the Super Bowl, I decided to finally drink my oak-aged vanilla worldwide stout from Dogfish Head. And so for those of you who aren't familiar, obviously it's a oak-aged, so if it's oak-aged, it's going to be, bourbony, a little boozy. This one is a very large 17%. And that was quite nice to warm my tummy during what was probably the worst football game I've ever seen, and the non-Paul Wolf division. So it was the big thing about it, I guess, that I noticed was it was very heavy on the vanilla. So it was quite good. The vanilla was a little overpowering at first, but it's kind of one of those, at 17%, it's really more of a sipping beer anyway. And again, like a lot of barrel-aged stouts, as it warmed up, you kind of get some of the other flavors. The vanilla kind of seemed to mellow out a little bit, and it was a delightful beer to drink while I was again watching the worst football game of all time.
Do you know if did it mention, is it aged on vanilla beans, or is it aged like with vanilla extract, or could you tell based on the flavor?
I could not tell, and so I don't drink. I'm not. I don't have quite the same experience that you do, particularly with like big beers. Mostly because I was too cheap to justify the expense of spending on big beers. So I don't quite have the same kind of palate as you do. So, but yeah, it was good. It was excellent. I don't know. Let me see. While you're talking about your beer, let me look it up and see if I can find out how it was brewed.
Do you have a Gardner Minshew rating on that beer?
Oh man, I didn't think in advance of I'm gonna have to think about that. Okay, you go and I'll come back.
Just such lack of preparation, which is perfect.
I know, it's perfect for us.
So yeah, I have a beer I've been kind of had in the chamber since we started this thing. It's a beer I picked up in San Antonio when I was down for the Alamo Bowl. So I actually highlighted this brewery on, it wasn't the beer of the game for Baxter's Beer of the Game, but it was a brewery that I suggested that people check out. I was going to do a beer from them, but I didn't have any left from the last time I went to San Antonio. It's Weathered Souls Brewing in San Antonio. It's an excellent brewery. As in my experience with San Antonio beer, probably the best brewery around there, probably one of the best breweries in Texas, which is actually, you may laugh at, but there's quite a few good ones in Texas these days. They have a real good scene going on, building. But Weathered Souls, so this beer is called Barrel Aged Peanut Butter No Jelly. So it's a big ass 13.8% barrel aged stout with what I'm guessing is like peanut butter dust or something to kind of give it that peanut butter flavor. It's quite nice. I actually was lucky enough to have it on at the brewery. and they had a bunch of barrel aged stuff, and I have a friend that lives in San Antonio, and he had introduced me to the brewer the last time we went. We shared some beers, and so again I brought some beer down, and we kind of shared some beers from the Northwest, and then he kind of was just busting out his beers. They tapped a beer that they had yet to release, and uh, that was phenomenal. It was this coconut double-barreled stout. But this one is excellent as well. I brought him a crowler of it. Interesting thing about their crowlers, he doesn't believe that anyone wants to have 32 ounces of the beer, so they have 16-ounce crowlers, so they just look like your regular tall boy can. I probably waited a little too long on this crowler because some of the carbonation has went off. Although I did see they purge their crowlers and they do it right, but yeah, it's still, even with the lower carbonation, it's an excellent beer. Um, and they're an excellent brewer. Kind of interesting factoid. Marcus, their head brewer, is excellent. Knows what he's doing. He's also African American, which, in talking to some of my other brewer friends, they hear it, conferences and stuff, which is less than 1% of craft brewers are African American. So it's a pretty unique thing. And his assistant brewer is African American as well. So it's kind of a cool thing to see. And just they're doing great stuff, which is even better. I've had some of their sours, some of their other barrel aged stuff. That double barrel beer, he actually gave me a bottle of it. I'll save for a fancy day because it was phenomenal. This beer is great as well. He's cranking out, all the trendy beers, the hazy IPAs. He's cranking out the fruited kettle sours, and then the long oak aged sours and everything. West Coast IPAs, regular, ESBs. He's just doing everything. And from what I've had from them, just an all around excellent brewery. It was a good experience. I met some friends there. There was actually a Coug Center reader who brought his family. After I had mentioned them on Baxter's Beer of the Game, so that was really cool to meet him. And maybe he's listening right now. Shout out. But yeah, it's just all around good brewery. And this beer is, I would say it's like not the best beer I've had from them, but it's definitely an excellent beer. I definitely have to pick a Gardner Minshew play from the Alamo Bowl, and so I'll probably say uh, probably that little shovel pass that he did in the fourth quarter on the final drive. It wasn't one of his touchdowns, but it was a quintessential like Gardner Minshew play, and this is kind of a just right along the lines of what I expect from this brewery. Just really well done, quality beer, and he had scrambled out of a sack and then just pitched it, kind of ad-libbed it to Tay Martin and picked up a huge first down, set him up the next play. Borgie ran it in for what was essentially the clinching touchdown. And so, yeah, that's my Gardner Minshew play for this Weathered Souls Barrel Aged Peanut Butter No Jelly.
So you're not going to believe this, but that was the play that I started thinking of for mine. And here was how I was going to here's how I was going to use it. I was like, okay, so this beer was like 17%, and it didn't take me very long to start feeling a little, a little good, And so I'm thinking, okay, by the time I was done with it, I wasn't quite stumbling around drunk, but I was like, I was feeling pretty good. So then I started thinking like, all right, well, I'm thinking of a Gardner Minshew play where he's just sort of like stumbling around and whatever. So maybe I'll switch to the touchdown in the Alamo Bowl where he kind of escaped a sack and then stumbled into the end zone. I think I'll go with that one instead because that one's still kind of in the same vein. And then at least on that one, he ends up on his ass. So that's probably pretty close to what I experienced.
Excellent. This one is 13, like I said, 13.8%, and I'm drinking the whole 60-ounce can of it. So I'll be
Attaboy.
feeling pretty good by the end of this podcast.
Attaboy. Anybody who sticks around to the end is definitely going to get paid off on that one.
Yeah, so we'll move on to be talking about some WSU, and it is, well, as we're recording this, National Signing Day, and the WSU recruiting class is all but wrapped up at this point. Not quite the luster that National Signing Day has had in the past, the second year of this early signing period in December where, basically 85% of your recruits are signing at this point. So National Signing Day in February is more of a kind of, polishing off your class. I think most teams are adding, 3 to 5 guys maybe today. There was a couple big gets. I know UW got a big 4-star guy, and you
Yeah,
saw there was,
screw them.
yeah, screw them. What's a 4-star? I don't even know what that is.
Yeah,
Um,
we don't need no 4 stars. We do
uh,
more with less at Washington State.
yeah, I could use a 4-star maybe in the Apple Cup once in a while, but
Okay,
um,
maybe like one. I guess like one would be okay.
yeah, Gabe Marks was a 4-star. We could use it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he turned out okay.
yeah, but yeah, Thomas Toki 4-star, just a great
Yeah,
one.
yeah, he didn't turn out so great. Along with let's see, Randy Estes, Terry Mixon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just we've had some great ones.
yeah. Michael Bumpus was a 4 star. That
I
worked
want
out
to
right.
say, wasn't like Andy Madden really a 4-star?
He might have been. I'm not sure. Jerome Harrison was. I know that
I
one
mean,
turned out
that he
okay.
definitely was. He was a 5-star in the end.
He was like
Uh,
5 million stars. He was a
yeah,
6 star.
all the stars.
All
A little off
stars.
topic, but I was watching. They were playing the the WSU Arizona, the Geyser fumble game uh,
Uh-huh.
from 2004 on Pac-12 Network a month back or so. And it was early in that year, 2004, was Harrison's first year of the two that he was with WSU, and he was in like a rotation at that point
Right.
with
Yeah.
a couple other guys. But in that game, he has the ball. You just knowing what you know now, when he gets the ball, you're like, this dude is clearly more talented than the other guys. Like,
Yeah.
why isn't he touching the ball more? And then by the end of the season, he's a feature back. I think he ran for like 140 yards against UCLA or something. But like, and then the next year, he explodes. But it's just kind of crazy to think like, why wasn't he getting all those carries? Like he should have ran for 1,500 yards his first year. But
Yeah. I mean, I think there was some thought that I mean, back then, and I know we like say back then, it's like, whatever, 15 years ago. But you know, running backs tended to be thought of, I think, in kind of more um, kind of more stereotypical roles, right? Your first and second down guy was a bigger dude who,
yep,
could sort of hammer it up in there. And then you had your third down back who was more of a catch the ball out of the backfield and kind of a shifty guy. And Harrison, obviously fit that mold in really just kind of every physical way, right? I mean, he was
yeah,
smallish and shifty and explosive and kind of all the things you would want a guy to be when he gets in space. And then all of a sudden you start handing him the ball in normal situations and it's like, oh wait, he's really good at that, and oh wait, he's really good at that too, and
he's really good at
oh
everything.
wow, he's like good at everything. Maybe we can hand him the ball more than
Yeah,
10 times a game. All right, well maybe we can hand him the ball 20. All right, well I don't know, well shit, let's give him the ball 30 times and see what
yeah.
he does. Let's go. So
Well, it's
um
funny his coming to his senior year in 2005. The Daily Evergreen in their preview had a interview with him, and they had like him and the 5 offensive linemen on like the cover of the football preview, and he said like, "Oh, I'm gonna run for 1,800 yards this year." And I'm thinking, if he runs for 1,800 yards, we're gonna win to the Rose Bowl, man. Like,
yeah, right.
he ran for 1,900.
Right.
We did not go to the
And
Rose
the
Bowl,
team did not go to the Rose
man.
Bowl.
If you look at that team, like we've talked about Bill C a lot. You look at that team, Bill Connolly's ratings. Um, he posted some 2004 ones recently, and they were like top 20. They're like top 25 in his ratings at 4 and 7. But if you look at the schedule, man, there's so many tough losses that year, like
Yep.
overtime to
Yep.
like number 6 UCLA, like all
Yep.
tough, like close loss to Oregon. I remember just that year in Martin Stadium as a student just being like painful, painful. It was just every game was like a close loss. But
Yeah.
such is
Welcome to
life. You
Cougar
have a
fandom.
1,900 yard back and you uh, in one Pac-12 game.
Yeah. All right. So just like real quick for discussion's sake. So here are the all-time top 10 rated recruits signed by Washington State. Okay, so you ready for this?
Yep.
So since you were kind of wondering, wasn't this guy a 4-star or whatever? Okay, so Washington State has signed 0 5-star recruits in its history, which is not a surprise, right?
I think one
Um,
service gave Mixon a 5-star, but
yeah,
probably
that's
was
that's possible.
on a
That's
whole.
possible.
But
Yeah, it's possible. Okay, so number one all-time recruit is Bumpus, Michael Bumpus, who fans might remember was supposed to go to USC, and then USC tried to pull some shenanigans with him, and he said,
tried to
"Fine,
gray
I'll go
shirt
to
him.
Washington State, you
Yeah.
idiots." And then the rest is history there. Number two is Gabe Marks. Gabe Marks actually the number two recruit, number two rated recruit in our history. Number three, Jermaine Green,
Hmm.
also a 4-star. Yes, played an important role in that 2003 team.
Actually,
Terry Mixon,
he should have been on that. He was on that 2004 team too, right? But he
Yep,
just didn't play much.
yep, yeah. Well, it's Jerome Harrison.
Yep.
So number four rated recruit Terry Mixon, who was what did they say? What did Bill Doba say? He was like two cheeseburgers short of a something. I don't even remember what he said, but
Was it
basically he
that
was
of a middle linebacker?
a couple of Big Macs or something. Yeah, yeah. I think that's what it was, right? Because he was supposed to be a safety. He was a couple of Big Macs short of a middle linebacker or something like that. I
Back
don't
when
know.
Levon Kirkland was playing middle linebacker.
Yeah,
Oh.
right. He definitely, so
Had
his
200.
recruiting profile says he was 6'1", 200. He definitely was not 6'1", 200 when he came to Wazoo.
No.
Randy Estes, 6'2", 200, 4-star recruit.
Andy, yes.
Heck of an impact that guy had.
Yeah.
Let's see. Thomas Toki. There we go. Thomas Toki, number 6, playing at Arkansas State now after all that. Sammy Moore. Sammy Moore, the number 7 recruit, was a 4-star.
He barely gets
Which
in under there, under the like the. What year was he recruited?
what
Oh, was
year?
he a
2000,
JC?
2002. Yeah, he
Oh,
was a
yes, he was a
JC guy.
JC. Yeah, that's right.
2002.
Yeah.
Yep, and his most significant contribution was a kick return in the Holiday Bowl, right? Jesse Taylor, tight end Jesse Taylor was a 4-star. Bet you didn't remember that.
No.
No. And then let's see, Jerome Harrison, number 9, is a 4-star recruit. And then number 10, 4-star recruit Jonathan Smith. Jonathan Smith came in the same class as Jesse Taylor and Sammy Moore and
The running back?
those guys. Yeah, yeah, I remember
He was
him.
big on that 2003 team. I think.
Yep, he was a little dude who was fast.
Yeah, he had some touchdowns. He
And
had quite a few touchdowns and quite a few
yep.
yards.
And let's
Yeah.
see, number 11 overall recruit was Andy Roof,
Oh, really?
4 stars at beating people up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then let's see, number 12, Tyler Brugman was a 4-star recruit.
So let's
Yay
just
for Tyler
let's think
Brugman.
about this. Like, so, what's our hit rate on this? So we have guys that were very, very good. Were Bumpus, uh,
Yeah.
Marks, Harrison. Guys that were good were Moore and Smith, and then
So okay, so we've signed 15 4-star recruits. All right. And the other ones that I didn't mention, Roderick Fisher, Jameer Calvin, Cameron Cooper. Okay, so there's the other 3, and those guys are all jury's still out on those guys, right?
yeah,
So if we throw them into categories of superstar, okay, so superstars would be Bumpus, Gabe Marks,
and Jerome
obviously
Harrison.
Jerome Harrison. That's that's probably it,
Yeah, I
right?
don't think Moore's on that level of those guys.
No. So then we go, okay, so next level would be, very good, right? Lived up to the hype in the sense that they became a very productive college player. So Jermaine Green would fit into that category. I don't
Sammy
know if
Moore.
Sam.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I
he had
don't know.
kick returns for touchdowns. I think
Yeah,
he was.
consistency was kind of
Yeah, he was definitely wasn't
iffy.
consistent. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, he's a JC 4-star though. It's like kind of.
right. And you almost never see JC 4-stars anymore.
Yeah.
Could just be the way that they evaluate them or whatever. But yeah, you don't see that very often anymore. And then you got your busts.
Well,
You got
Jonathan
your
Smith, I'd say
Mixons.
Jonathan Smith and Sammy
Your
Moore are probably not a bust, but
No,
they're
they're probably in the
they're
solid
productive. They
contributor
had some
category.
production.
Yeah,
They
and
they
maybe
weren't
like
they weren't
not
probably
four. They
four-star
weren't 4-star
level.
production.
Yeah, yeah, not a four-star level, but they're. But then everyone else, it's like a lot of guys that didn't even make it to school. I mean, what do you say Jameer Calvin was in there?
Yeah, Jameer Calvin's a 4-star. So far, so good on him. I mean,
I
not
mean,
a
yeah, you took him his first 2 years as a freshman and a sophomore. Like, he
yeah,
definitely had four-star talent like right away. Like,
yeah,
that's a guy that comes in and can play that well. That's what you expect
right.
out of a four-star wideout. Like,
Yep,
yeah,
yep. And I mean, I don't know what his stats say, but um, his production, I would think, is probably pretty similar. And I know they played different positions, but probably pretty similar to Gabe Marks in terms of production.
yeah,
The first couple years, I would think. So,
yep,
yep. And then, so outright busts, you're talking Brugman, Roof, Toki, Estes, Mixon. So like about 1/3 bust rates. It works out to about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 so far, where it's kind of like, 1/3 turned out to be really good, 1/3 turned out to be okay, and 1/3 turned out to be nothing.
yeah.
So, sounds about right. And then of course, jury's still out on Roderick Fisher and Cameron Cooper, and who knows if Cooper can compete. Should we talk about the quarterback situation heading
Yeah.
into next
One
year? Or
one more thing I wanted to
how you
ask you.
feeling about that?
One
Yeah,
more
go
thing I
ahead.
wanted to ask you. So, do you think our four-star bust rate might be a little higher because sometimes the four-star guys that we're taking are maybe coming with some risk?
Yeah, maybe it's possible. I mean, I assume that's the case. That was the case with Mixon. Estes, I don't really know that much about. I don't remember that much about that case. I'm sure some listener will remind me kind of all that went
But
into. But
I
but
think you
yeah,
say the older stuff, like I think the valuations might be better now than they were
I
15,
think they're
16,
way better
17
now.
years ago. So,
Yeah. I think there's just more information, and then a lot of these kids are going to combines and
right.
camps now where back in those days you would just go to the school camps and that was all. And so you would go to these school camps and it basically amounted to a tryout, right? And the summer camp at UW or whatever, and you'd go and basically you're auditioning for a scholarship. Now there's so much more exposure with Huddle. Well, like a perfect example is Fotu, right? Fotu
Yeah.
Leitao, however you pronounce it, but the player who went viral after blowing up everyone and everything out at Stelicum, and of course he tragically died in a car accident
Yeah.
this past off season. But that's the kind of guy that Wazoo in the past could have landed. The Cougs were on him and they really wanted him, and then all of a sudden this film gets out and everybody sees it, and all of a sudden he's got an offer from Oregon. He ends up at Oregon. So it's just not a lot of that anymore, and so WSU obviously. There just aren't those secrets anymore, and the 4-star guys that they've gotten, a lot of them you can see kind of came with some risk, and maybe they landed them with you know with guys who maybe didn't have as many other options as they might have had um, otherwise. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. 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 But actually, the hit rate was a little higher than I thought. Like on good, like just on
yeah,
the
it's not too
surface.
bad. Yeah,
There's some like I mean, there's some all-time WSU players in there. Like,
yep,
but and then there's some all-time funny stories too. Uh, but yeah.
too.
So, like you said, the quarterback situation. Obviously Gage Gabrud is he's probably not going to win. I don't know. He might win an appeal. It'll be
I don't think
interesting.
so.
But I mean, basically, his appeal is going to be, I played 1/3 of the season because they went to the playoffs and went all the way to the title game. But I mean, here's the thing: like the fact that they were going after him is a little concerning.
A little bit.
Because last, like, it I try to think about it this way, like they were they were intending on Helinski to be the starting quarterback last year and this year. So
Right.
maybe they're just bringing in these experienced guys because they thought they would have another guy. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure they were hoping that Connor Neville would turn into something, but I mean, he
right,
doesn't even seem to get mentioned,
nope.
when it comes to the quarterback situation. He doesn't even seem to get mentioned, which is a pretty big bummer. So,
Yeah, and with Cooper, it's it, trying to believe like maybe he's not ready, uh, maybe he's not like quite the talent that we thought he was, but uh, this spring will be a big thing for him, I think. But um, it's just interesting. Yeah, it'll be his. He had spring last year, and well, I guess spring 20. Yeah, he'll be a redshirt. What am I thinking? Redshirt freshman. Yeah.
yeah,
So he said this will be his second spring, and he'll have a fall, an entire fall. So hopefully something will click. It's Leach's run with these fifth year guys before.
yep,
I don't know if they've always been. I honestly don't know from the research and everything, like guys like BJ Simons and stuff, if they were walk-ons originally. But it'll be interesting to see, if Cammon's not ready, then it's probably Tinsley or Gordon, and probably Tinsley if because he seemed like he was a leg up this year. Um, I mean, in his limited time, he was basically playing against backups and blowouts, so it's kind of hard to get a read on like how, and they were just running safe passes essentially, their late game, running out the clock where they're just kind of throwing screens and a lot of stuff like that. So it's kind of like it's hard to get a read from like the game time, but you know, with the talent he would have, he won't. I wouldn't expect like Gardner level production, but I think that our offense would be still good
yeah. I
with
mean,
whoever they plug in.
yeah, I'm a pretty firm believer that you can actually get a pretty good sense of how. I don't think you can get a sense of like a guy's ceiling when you watch a quarterback play in the spring game, but I think you can get a pretty good sense of their grasp on the offense, and I mean, I even go back to um, Leach's first spring game, and Jeff Toole and Connor Halliday were both just train wrecks in that game. And I remember it was windy that day, as it always seems to be up there at Albee, but it was really windy, and people were like, "Oh, well, it was windy, it was hard to throw the ball." Okay, whatever. Well, then, the fall comes around, and no, they both like are not good, right, in the air raid until Jeff Toole's magical fourth quarter, right? So I think, and then a couple years later, you got, Tyler Brugman, who comes in, and you watch him and you're just like, holy crap, man, that kid doesn't have a clue what he's doing out there. And so I think you can kind of get a sense of that just by watching. Like I said, I don't know that it gives you a good sense of a guy's ceiling because it's not really live reps. It's not you're
Right.
not really pushing the ball downfield. The kinds of throws that maybe you need to make, against USC or Utah or whatever. You're not necessarily making those throws in a spring game, right?
Right.
So, I don't know that you can get a total sense evaluating a guy watching a spring game. But I think you can get a sense of when a guy is like not ready. And, so like when we watched, last year, Cam and Cooper, it was like, okay, yeah, he's not ready, right? He should still be in high school right now. You're watching him. One moment he makes kind of a brilliant throw, squeezing it in between a couple guys. The next minute he throws a really stupid pass and, whatever. So, he's one, you were just talking about him. I'm curious to see whether he looks to have more command this spring. But then as I think back to last spring, watching Tinsley and Gordon, I mean, Gordon seemed, and again, it's totally anecdotal, just thinking off the top of my head, but, Gordon seemed to have a little better arm, seemed to be a little less accurate
Right.
with his throws. Tinsley looked to me like a guy who Had pretty good command of the offense, knew what he was doing out there, knew where he wanted to go with the ball. I know he threw it to, it feels like anyway, he threw it to Kyle Sweet about 15 times.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That may not be true. That's just what I remember. And that day was fuzzy, by the way, because we were tailgating hard. But yeah, we'll talk more about the Coug Center spring game tailgate later, which is like the greatest thing because we don't actually have to stress out about a real football game. Anyway, from what I remember, Tinsley. What's that?
And some Pullman this year. Woo.
Yes. Oh God, I'm so excited. Anyway, I just remember Tinsley looked comfortable and confident running the offense, and that's the kind of thing that makes me think, if he's the guy leading it, I'm probably okay with that. I mean, Leach has a long track record, like you said, of picking up, having guys like that, plugging them in and having them be productive. And I don't think it's reasonable to expect, Gardner Minshew production, but then again, we didn't expect Gardner Minshew to have Gardner Minshew production. So, you just never know. And he's going to have a ton of talent around him. He'll be able to rely on a really, really good running back. I just think that, he's, even if the guy, whoever's picked, isn't, a transcendent talent by any means. I just don't see a lot of reason to think that even without Gabrud in the fold, that we won't be able to find a guy who can competently lead the offense.
Yeah, and you mentioned how Tinsley just looked like he knew where he wanted to go with the ball, and he was going to Sweet a lot. Honestly, like we saw Falk kind of regress, to the point where he was overthinking things, and he wouldn't just take that first read. He wouldn't just, go with the logical place immediately to go with the ball. And we saw Gardner do that more this year, where he just hit that quick, hit the guy on the mesh like real quick, or hit that, just drop to the running back before, in time, so they have time to run with the ball, rather than like waiting so long that the defense has collapsed already. So if Tinsley is going to be a guy like that, where he, maybe he's not going to always like be looking for that big play, but at least he's moving the chains. Like, that's fine, and that's going to work. And we have some great talent at wideout and at running back that are going to make some guys miss. And if it's a little 5-yard pass, it could be a 25-yard gain. Who knows?
Yeah. Yep. I feel comfortable, and I don't know. Like, I think people want, they when something good happens, they want more of that good thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like some of the infatuation with Gabrud is simply just that Minshew was so great.
Yeah.
And Tinsley and Gordon are some unknown, and Gabrud is kind of a known because he played at Eastern.
And he beat us once.
And he torched us that one time with, Cooper Kupp and, two other guys who were nearly NFL level receivers.
Which,
so
by the way, last year we didn't have Cooper Kupp, and the other guys, he was like 14 of 36 with 3 picks.
Right. And he just got pummeled by our defense for 3.5 hours. So, yeah, I mean, I was never one who thought that even, and look, he still might show up. I mean, who knows? I mean,
yeah, he could.
The NCAA might change their mind for whatever reason, and whatever. But
if he wins the job, he wins the job. He's the best QB. Leach is not going to hand it to him. So
yeah, I mean, I was never of the mind that he was going to walk in there and be the guy from the first day, no matter what. Like, that was never. I didn't see him as that kind of a player.
Right.
When I watched Minshew's film, I was like, okay, yeah, I could see this guy doing it, but I don't know. Gabrud, it's not like I think he's bad. It's just like I don't know. I didn't see him as someone who was, who was a whole bunch better than, probably going to be a ton better than everybody on the roster the day he stepped on campus. So.
Yeah. Yeah, so real quick, let's just do like a 1 minute of just your overall impressions as a class, and should we be terrified that it is the 63rd ranked class in the country?
Yeah, somebody asked us that on Twitter, and I responded. I said, it was solid, but unspectacular, right? Like uninspiring. There's no, one big recruit to hang your hat on. There's no 4-stars in the class. If there's anything that's it's mildly irritating that Utah's got like 3 4 stars, and I'm
Right.
like, why is Utah cleaning up? Like, I want to, like, that kind of pisses me off. But I mean, the staff has shown that, and I know it's kind of a different staff now than it was, but Mike Leach has shown that he's really good at identifying guys who can do things, and guys who will develop, and that he can win games with classes that are ranked right about where this one is. I mean, this one's obviously on the low end for what he's done, but
Yeah.
I mean, he's never had a top 25 class at
40s and
WSU.
50s is
So
where he's been.
yeah,
Yeah,
40s
40s
and
and 50s.
50s. This one's in the 60s, mostly because they've got 2 kids in the class who are gray shirts who aren't being factored into the rankings of this class. They've got another kid who is gonna Hunter McGinnis, who came to school in the fall. Kook fan has said that he was a blue shirt, so he's taking one of these 25 scholarships, even though he doesn't count against this class.
Right.
So I think part of the ranking issue is that you're dealing with a smaller class anyway, just a little bit, and then and 24/7, I think rightly so, weights the 4 stars and the 5 stars heavier than the 3 stars, so it's not a strict average ranking.
Yeah.
It gives you kind of bonus points for the 4 stars and the 5 stars, which I think is absolutely the right way to go about it, because those
Yeah.
guys are the difference makers. Those guys are, the more of those guys you have, the more likely you are to win championships.
Hmm.
So I'm totally okay with that. So, I mean, I'm not freaking out about it. Somebody must be, because Kook fan wrote like 3 pieces today that were all like, like the old Kevin Bacon from Animal House, where he's going, all is well, all is well, don't worry. It's like Kook fan did like 3 of those. And so, man, somebody must be freaking out, but I'm not.
Yep. And honestly, like our offensive line seems fine, and I think as long as they keep stacking that offensive line, we're never going to be like, it seems like we're in Leach's kind of mode he got where it was like 7 wins or more every year at at Texas Tech, because we're playing these like weak non-conference schedules. Although we do have one tough one this year, but it's kind of like, maybe we're just in that mode now where 6 or 7 we have bowl games just because we have this locked in, the offensive line's locked in. We got guys that have been in the program playing quarterback for 4 or 5 years, so it doesn't seem like, given the off season last year, this was expected, and it probably would have been way worse if they didn't win so many games. So
Yep. Yeah.
yeah, but let's move on. We won't dig in too deep into basketball this week, but we got to talk about basketball. Um,
Do we have to?
yes, because
All right.
because
Okay.
Ernie just said something so funny this week.
Yeah.
Um,
He tends to do that.
so Viante Daniels didn't play much on Saturday, only 6 minutes. He's our senior guy. We know his limitations, but we also know everyone's limitations on this team. But
Right.
6 minutes, and Ernie basically said the reason he's not playing is because we're better this year. Jeff, are we better this year?
We are definitely not better this year. Here's the thing that got me the most about that quote. Okay, so basically, he says, it was a question about Daniels and then Carter Skaggs also, and just kind of why they weren't playing. And so he says, hey, we've just, we've added all this talent and we're better this year. And it just sort of cracked me up, because I'm like what? Like okay, like earlier this year, people might remember Viante Daniels missed 4 games with a concussion, right?
Right.
And when WSU was losing, I think they lost 2 of those 4 games or something like that. Or maybe it wasn't like that, but anyway, it was something like that. And anyway, he was sort of lamenting, oh man, we've just had to deal with these injuries, and we just haven't been as good as we want to be because of injuries. And I'm like, well, like, which is it? It's like, were you crippled because Viante Daniels had a concussion, or is your team so much better that Viante Daniels can only get 6 minutes? So, Ernie says nonsense. I mean, he said another nonsense thing in his press conference. I mean, he just, when he's out of ideas, is when he starts with the nonsense, right? So like, sort of the original incarnation of why did WSU lose this time, right? When I did those last year,
Right.
a couple years before that, when they only won one Pac-12 game, which not so coincidentally was the year that they played in the best version of the Pac-12 in Ernie's 5 years.
Right.
He had one, meeting with the media after a game where he was just like, I mean, sort of like unhinged is sort of the best way I can describe it. Not unhinged as like angry or whatever, but more just like just completely not making sense. Like just saying stuff that was like completely crazy. And so last year when we started getting into all the excuses, it was like, yeah, he's out of ideas. And we've reached the point now where what have they lost? 9 of 10 or 10 of 11 or something like that. He's out of ideas again. And so he's just, so he does a crazy thing like put Viontae Daniels on the bench for 6 minutes, which, as I wrote, in my thing on Monday, I'm like, I'm not here to like say that, oh, Viontae Daniels was wrong, that we really need more minutes out of a one-dimensional 6'1" shooting
Right.
guard, right? Like
It was the other
that's
part.
not really what
The other thing.
right. It was the other thing. It was like, no, they're not better. Like just say what it is. Just say we need to get taller. Like we need to, like if we're going to have any chance of competing against these longer teams, we need to get taller on the perimeter. And so I just, chose to play Kuntz instead of Daniels. Okay, fine. That makes legitimate sense. Like don't be like, oh, we're better. Like you're not. Everybody knows you're not. Like,
yeah. So they're sitting currently
crazy.
at 229 in the KenPom rankings, far and away the low point in the KenPom era for WSU.
Yep.
Worse
than Paul Graham.
Being the worst. So I'll say in Ken Bone's final year, they were in line to be the worst team ever in KenPom, and then they like beat number 14 like ranked on KenPom UCLA by 18 points on senior day. Like
Yep.
And then they ended up
raised them up like 30
getting
spots,
like 30 spots or something. So they could still do that, but I don't know. There was some better guys on that team, but so this week, actually, what's funny? I was just looking at the page. I clicked back to the 2014 team, and then I clicked back to the 2019 team. Our win percentage for Arizona State went from 6 to 7% probability of winning. So maybe I should just keep clicking back and forth, and the team will get better.
Maybe we should do that. But they'll probably just get worse.
But
every
Arizona
minute
State,
that goes
Arizona, pretty much 2 very much guaranteed L's in there. The only kind of it'll be, will they lose by more than 20 or less than 20 is kind of the only wonder there.
What do you think in the total loss margin is? What's
what's
the over under on the total loss margin?
It seems like every weekend they really punt one of the games.
Yep.
Like so I'm gonna say probably at Arizona, I think will be their worst one, and they'll probably lose that one by 30. And I think they'll lose to Arizona State. It'll be like 17, and so I'll get like let's say 47 points.
Okay, over under 47. I will take the over on that.
You're going to over? They're going to lose by more.
I'll take the over. I'll take. I think it's going to be greater than 50.
If we remember, we'll go back and check that, but we probably won't.
Yeah, we probably won't.
Anyway, so basketball. Okay, I will say this. I'm going to give props to one player. I was poking around today, and Ahmed Ali, for all of his limitations when it comes to getting to the free throw line and but he in conference play a 109.5 offensive rating.
Yeah, how about that?
Player.
Yeah. It's amazing what happens with you hit some threes and don't turn the ball over and get a few assists and voila, instant
Voila.
production.
Yeah. So,
Can't
because actually,
defend, but whatever.
after the first, he had a terrible first weekend against Utah and Colorado, and so
Yeah.
and UW. So he had a terrible start. He barely played against UW, and then struggled against Colorado and Utah. But he's actually picked it up. He's had a few good games: Stanford, Cal, and USC, Oregon State. So we'll see how he does on the road against much better competition. Um, the cream of the crop outside of UW in the Pac-12.
Yeah, that should be exciting.
Yeah. So yeah. So that's basketball. Oh, one more thing. They are now projected on KenPom to win 10 games. So so
Circling back, so we remembered to circle back to that from
we
last
were
week,
circled
right?
back. We were
Are they going to
guessing
win
that they
more
would.
games than
I
the
think
football
I
team?
said they would hit 11. They now I kind of thought they would trip up USC this weekend when I was saying that. So
Not
uh,
when you give up 93 points
93 points.
in a 72 possession non-overtime game.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
They've given up 90 plus points 3 times. Three
And
times
these
in
are not
Pac-12.
high pace,
That's
like super
insane.
fast games that they're playing.
No. They gave up 92 to Colorado in a 69 possession game. They gave up 90 to Oregon State in a 67 possession game. Like that's a very average length game. If people are like, I know it's hard sometimes to contextualize these numbers. I'm telling you, like 67 is like basically an average game, right? Like average tempo is 68. So 68 is average. So 67 is right there at average, right? They give up
They are
90
at they are
points.
allowing they are allowing in conference play 1.21 points per possession. That's
It's so
the
absurd.
Division One
So
average
insane.
is 1.03 or 1.04 points per
Uh,
possession.
oh
And
my
in
god.
conference play they're allowing 1.2. That's insane. That's that's so bad. That
It's so bad.
and we since Ken Bone took over after Clay graduated, or not graduated but left, we've pretty much been 12th or 11th or WSU has pretty much been 12th or 11th in defense in the Pac-12 in conference play every year. But this is setting like a new bar, and like it's 100 or 321st in adjusted defensive efficiency, like
Yeah, I mean that's like
321st defense in like for a quote unquote power conference school.
yeah. I mean in Pac-12 play, they're basically like what, like 15 points worse than an average defense?
Yeah.
Not like an average like Pac-12 defense, like an
No, yeah.
average defense.
You're saying
Division 1 defense.
like in a like during a game, yeah, because they're 18 points worse per 100 possessions. So yeah, about 15 maybe during a regular game.
Yeah. Oh my God. Anyway, yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. Oh, and by the way, okay, so we're still on this. Ernie's press conference, by the way, said, and so full disclosure, I have not actually watched the video. I just saw some tweets about it from our friends at Cougar Sports Network, their recently launched website. Give them a little plug. They covered his press conference, his media availability this week, and their tweet said, "This is how they relayed what he said. Said, how will WSU be competitive this upcoming road trip? According to Coach Kent, it's a combination of hitting the boards, protecting the ball, and taking good shots."
Yeah.
And my response was, so we've just given up on even trying defense. Like we've just decided we're not even going to try that. We're going to be like, we've got to rebound, we've got to not turn the ball over, we've got to take good shots, none of which is going to stop the opponents from scoring 1.3 points per possession like they have been, which is anyway.
Hey,
So crazy.
just so our listeners know, WSU basketball is not good. If you haven't figured that out by now.
No.
It's not good both when you look at the record. Oh, screw it. Let's just keep talking about basketball. We love basketball. So I don't know if you may have seen today or yesterday. Let me just digging in here. Illinois beat Michigan State at home. Illinois' record is 8-15. WSU's record is 8-14. This shows you the impact of like if WSU played Illinois' schedule, like what would their record be? Because Illinois, if you look at their schedule, their losses: 79 Georgetown, number 3 Gonzaga, number 12 Iowa State, number 102 Xavier, 93 Notre Dame, 32, 33, 85. They lost to 170. That sucks. 45, 68, 6, 24, 11. Like they've just lost to so many good teams. WSU hasn't played any team of that caliber at all. They've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the top 35. And WSU hasn't played a single one.
They also played, only 5 of those games have been against sub 100 teams. So teams ranked in the 200s or 300s.
Yeah.
They've only played 5 games. WSU has played, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 games against teams ranked in the 100s or 200s or 300s. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, and so poor Illinois is like struggling to this 8-15 record.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be around the same like total wins that we are, and it's just like, oh man, like imagine
the
if
same
you
deal
played
for
actual schedule.
Oh, I know. Like our good friend Kyle Sherwood, right? Indiana fan Kyle Sherwood, and the brutal murderers row that Indiana's been playing lately.
Yeah.
Although they did beat Michigan State, so he's happy now.
Well, Indiana is a team that if the Big Ten wasn't so brutal, probably could be a tournament team. But the fact that they're just not good enough to beat like some of these really good teams, like they did clip Michigan State, but they're losing to Michigan and Purdue and like Michigan twice. Like Nebraska is good, Maryland's good.
Maryland's good.
That's what you got to play, and it's not getting any easier. Like the rest of their schedule, they have their final weekends fine, but like the rest of it is just like they could end up, Ken Pom has them as 17-14, 8-12. Like, and they're number 45 right now in his rankings.
Yeah. I remember when the Pac-10 used to be that good.
Well, it was like Taylor Rochester or Bain's senior year.
I was going to say, it was good when we were good like that. Why couldn't it have been bad when we were good?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Like, Kyle Weaver and Derek Lowe could have went like 16-2 against this current Pac-12. Like, easily.
I know. Maybe even better. They might have gone undefeated. They might have gone undefeated. Who knows? Get a Pac-10, Pac-12 championship.
They need to pick when they're good better.
Yeah. All
right. So this is taken.
Should we make fun of the NFL?
Yeah, but briefly, because we have already just killed some time.
We have.
This is where we'll tell you to leave because we're going to be liberals and shit.
That's right.
Yeah.
We might offend your delicate sensibilities.
But it's just going to be brief this week, just because it's just. So you're watching the NFL, the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl, I would say. Um,
Yeah.
bowel movement.
Yep.
Wow, what a trash game. But the NFL, to its credit, did probably have one of the better commercials. That the one when, except for the Goodell part, but the one when all the Hall of Famers are chucking around and young players and shit. That was pretty funny. But anyway, so
Yep.
some of their other commercials and some of their pregame stuff really promoted their social justice values. Jeff, I don't know. I know you thought that was a little funny. Like, why do you think that's funny?
Oh my gosh. Like, and it was just so like it was the most NFL way of doing it too, right? Like it was just like very self-important, and we take this thing very seriously. Capital V, capital S very seriously, right? Like it was just oh my God. So, of course you've got the one commercial that made me just roll my eyes so hard was the little bit that they did where Goodell was walking through, and I, you'll have to forgive me because I don't remember what exactly it was, but it was like some kind of civil rights museum. And so walking through this civil rights museum with Bernice King, right? And he's looking very serious and concerned as they, and it's like the NFL is committed to social justice by Roger Goodell walking through a museum. It was just
Right.
like, oh my God, like okay, yeah, this is social justice. And then the other one, of course, was it showed a bunch of players doing stuff. Oh, look, the NFL's committed to, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, come on, like we're gonna, look at what all our players are doing for good stuff. And it's like, yeah, that has nothing to do with you. And of course, noticeably absent was Colin Kaepernick, who, of course,
Yeah.
he's not an NFL player right now, so why would he be included? But you want to talk about a guy who has spent, like literally millions of dollars out of his own pocket for social justice causes. That's the guy. Anyway, it just was so like the NFL is expert at like co-opting the values of other things, and in order to make themselves look better. In my class, when I do media studies with my classes, we talk about these what we call propaganda techniques, basically,
Yeah.
and this is pretty classic transfer, right? Like we're trying to get you to associate our product with this other thing that you already have positive feelings for. So, it's, oh, look, social justice. Yeah, look at us. We're associated with social justice. We're associated with Bernice King. We're associated, and that somehow is supposed to rub off on our feelings about them. And it just was so like, it made like a turd of a game even worse because I'm just like, oh, that is so repulsive. You ran a guy out of the league for his social justice, stance, and it just to now co-opt and then to co-opt the things that other players are doing, as if you somehow had something to do with that is just
Right.
like, oh, it's
Well,
so annoying.
yeah, and it's funny. Amanda, my girlfriend, was just like watching it, and she had that same response. And look, she doesn't follow the NFL that much. I made a joke that she probably watches the Patriots more than the Seahawks because they're in the Super Bowl every year. Because she might watch a Seahawks, like one Seahawks game a year, and then she watches like one Patriots game a year. But then she like during one of the game, like third quarter, they had another commercial, and she's like, this is like, what is this? Is disgusting. Like this makes me mad. Like, why are they doing this? Like, and so if I assume that someone like her, someone like you and me, are the person they're targeting with that ad. If we're calling bullshit on it, why are you even bothering with it? Because you're more conservative based. Like they're not gonna care like about your social justice tendencies or whatever. And you're trying to reach your liberal fans or whatever, your social justice inclined, your social justice warriors or whatever, and they're like, whatever, this is stupid. So it seemed like kind of, hopefully it was just a big waste of money for them, and I hope that most of the people kind of saw it for what it was.
They probably didn't, but I mean, I hope they did. It just, yeah, it was just so blatantly
Oh
self-serving,
yeah, there
like,
was
and I
like
know
a
like that's kind of the whole point, but still,
there
it's
was
just
like
ugh.
one of the shots in one of the commercials was like Goodell and a player, and they were like sitting at some table doing something. Like you don't know what they
That's
were
right,
doing.
having a very serious conversation
Yeah, it's like okay. I
about
think it was
social
like supposed to
justice.
show that they were volunteering or something. I don't know. But
Well,
yeah,
and
it
not only
was.
that, like another like kind of propaganda technique I teach is glittering generalities, right? Where it's like, so the way the kids look at, we talk about words like freedom, right, and liberty, and it's like, what is that? What is exactly does that mean? What exactly does that look
Justice.
like? Right, justice. You don't ever have to define it, right? Because it's, oh, everybody thinks it's a good thing, and so I've got some, and everybody likes that, and so everybody likes me, right? And it's so in some ways, I feel like that's what was done with the whole social justice thing, because it's like, what does social justice really mean, right? Like, what are we really talking about here? Like they didn't say, oh, we have these players working on behalf of cops shooting black kids. Like they didn't say that, right?
Right.
Instead, they're, oh, we are behind social justice because honestly, who's not for
Yeah.
social justice? Right? And so it becomes this glittering generality where it's like, what do they mean by social justice? Who knows? It could be touring a museum. It could be having a very serious conversation with some players. It could, whatever. But we're committed. I don't know. It just is it's so hollow and shallow. And, and I'm sure I know there are players doing some good stuff. I
Yeah.
know there are, for the NFL to co-opt it as their own, or that somehow they facilitated these things, is just like, it's disgusting. It's disgusting, and it irritates me. And I don't know, if I didn't like watching the football so much, I'd probably just be like, screw it, and not watch the NFL anymore. But I'm a sucker, just like everybody else who's listening to this, and so I keep coming back like an idiot.
Yep. Yep. We're all idiots.
Of
Um.
course,
So.
that's kind of the theme of the show.
Yeah. That's exactly the theme of the show. We're just a couple idiots,
Yep.
and hundreds of you are listening. Well, okay,
Right.
more than 100 of you are listening.
More than a
So.
hundred of you.
Yeah. Um. But yeah. So. We were struggling pop culture segment because we're so bad at pop culture that it's hard for us to think about things to talk about in pop culture. So the Super Bowl is pop culture, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that counts.
we don't really talk about the game. It was trash, universally accepted trash, piece of garbage, bullshit, fucking game. Like what? Like oh god, we could have had
Yeah.
Saints Chiefs, man. Jesus, what?
I know.
Ugh.
Even Saints Patriots would have been okay. Like, but the Rams, when Jared Goff's your quarterback, you're gonna get what you got sometimes.
Yeah.
So
And actually, I saw an interesting thread. I wish I could remember the NFL analyst that had it, but in analyzing that, the Patriots are one of the better teams all season at defending 11 formations. So that's
yeah. Yep.
yeah, um, but they were some and they were some of the worst. They were one of the worst teams at defending 12 formations. Um, but that is one back in the backfield or two backs in the backfield, just for anyone.
12, yeah, 12 would be one back, two tight ends.
Yeah, one back, two tight ends, and one back, one tight end. So it's how many wide receivers you have split out and all that.
Right.
Um, so uh, basically, but the Rams just basically what Belichick is so good at is adjusting to the opponent, and what McVay is young and stubborn and says, no, we're going to do what we did so well all year. And Belichick once again just made someone look stupid. Like he made the brightest offensive mind in the league look stupid. So,
Which
uh,
is amazing. Like
yeah,
it's like clockwork.
I know he always does it. Like except against Doug Peterson and the Eagles and Nick Foles last year. That was the one.
Even that was a bit of a struggle though, right? Like
Yeah,
it
that's
wasn't
true.
like,
The
it
40
wasn't like
doesn't.
they lit him up, but
Yeah, but yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, he does it over and over again, and it's frustrating. He's so. Ugh. But anyways, the commercials though were also maybe kind of overall. Yeah, like I pretty played it safe, I think. A lot of um one thing that you mentioned that stood out is there was a lot of robots. I
Oh
don't know
my
about
God.
you, I hate that robot child thing. That was just creepy and weird and stupid, and everyone keeps.
So many robots. Like every ad had a robot for like the first like half of the game. It was like robot after not even like, smart speakers or whatever. Like that was the whole other thing, right? There was like every commercial for like the first half of the game had a robot or a smart speaker in it, or a robot with a smart speaker. And then of course the crying baby, right? That was crying but laughing. Like I
Ugh,
could have done without the creepy robot baby for sure.
that would, ugh. Um, what commercial did you hate the most,
Did I hate the most?
or that you just
Uh,
thought was stupid? I mean, there's
yeah,
this
I
one that there's
mean,
this like company. I'm not sure what they do. Which already, come on, guys, you spent 5 million, but they do a
yeah,
commercial every year. I think they like clean stuff or do something, and it was just really boring. So good job, 5 million bucks. But I guess you're just doing this so you can get on the list of like worst commercials, and then your name gets mentioned. So people,
maybe.
but I don't
I
know.
mean,
Like,
the T-Mobile ads were pretty dumb too.
oh yeah. Uh, I thought I just let's be the team old right now. So Chance the Rapper, I've listened to some of his music. It's good. It's enjoyable. But the Chance the Rapper and Backstreet Boys commercial was like, I think it was Cheetos or some chips or Doritos or something. It was just so like poorly edited, like and just like random. Like it was like, I know you only got 30 seconds, but this is like all over the place. And the song doesn't sound as good because you're just like cutting back and forth. But that was just that one kind of like bothered me just because it was like maybe because I'm old. I don't know. Because I got a kid, I'm tired.
I liked the Washington Post ad. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, eh, yeah, I mean, I think you put it this way earlier this week when we were chatting online, like, at some point you punch back, right? At some
Hmm.
point you just sort of say, no, no, this is what we do, and this is important. And so, and I don't know if you are, I think you are, but I'm a Washington Post subscriber, and
Yep, I am.
yeah, and so I thought that was cool. I'm like, yeah, that's yeah, yeah, stand up and be like, no, we matter, we're awesome, and we're doing a good thing for everybody. So I thought that was great. I
Yeah.
like that.
I know you
I
like
also
the mic
liked the
Microsoft. Yeah.
yeah, the Microsoft ad made me cry. I'm not ashamed to admit that.
Which there is
And
a
then there
Coog.
was a
There is a Coog I would tailgate you
yeah,
with before who is on that ad team. So he's quite
yeah,
proud of
yeah. So that part was cool. And then there was one, the ad by Devour. Now, I don't even really know what Devour is actually, but I do know that they made a commercial that totally played to our just like lowest common denominator humor by pretending that
it. It was
her
porn.
husband was into porn, right? And
Yeah.
so that was funny, not because it was clever or super great, but just because that sort of ad will just always make you laugh,
That that
right?
was that was one of
It's
the ones
basically
that
potty humor, and I'm always good with potty humor.
that was one of the ones that like because they'll release the commercials before that I had already seen
Okay.
like on Twitter, so that kind of ruined it. But yeah, it was funny, they obviously like they're reaching for that, and we all laughed, and it was funny.
Yep.
It was definitely
Yep.
lowbrow.
And
Like I
there's
said, the
something to be
NFL
said for that
commercial
too,
with
though,
all the
right?
huh?
There's something to be said for that too, right?
Yeah.
Like like not everything has to be like ultra clever. Like sometimes it's like, it's okay to just like laugh at some, where your mind's in the toilet for a couple minutes.
Well, and yeah, and that was like kind of like the NFL commercial with Marshawn and everyone. Like that was just like it's just funny. It's like physical comedy, and
Right.
and like just,
That's all.
easy jokes, but it's still like it's just fun to see all those players, and it's
Yeah.
fun to see Marshawn reaching for that cake and falling over and knocking over the cake and
Right.
the football or whatever. So that
Which
that
is a
that was
pretty
fun.
Marshawn thing.
Exactly. And then like, uh we had Russ Wilson in there, and Richard Sherman in there, and there's, some of
Right.
our recent greats on the Seahawks that were in there. So we're relevant. But
Yeah. And as far
yeah,
as we
so
know, Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman didn't try to punch each other or anything.
oh yeah, exactly. Or maybe
Yeah.
they were never even they probably weren't even ever in the room at the
Yeah,
same.
that's probably true.
Yeah. Uh,
By the way, I have a question for you.
yeah.
Were you as shocked to find out as I was that Coors Light and Miller Lite use corn syrup in their beer?
No.
That
I was shocked to find out that Bud Light does not.
Bud Light doesn't. Okay, so it was funny though because like when Bud Light started having those commercials a month ago or whatever that were like, we're gonna put the ingredients on it, and I'm like, why? Like I'm like, doesn't like don't we all sort of have a pretty
Well,
good
one
sense of what goes into your beer?
the ingredient that they use that's kind of weird, which is the rice, and
Yeah.
because that's an unmalted grain, and it's used specifically to bump up alcohol without impacting flavor. Like that's
Okay.
exactly why they do, and it creates kind of a clean, like it's better than using like because corn syrup, you're probably going to get like a more of an ethanol like flavor from that. But rice, it'll mostly just dry it out without kind of making the alcohol so prevalent. But it's kind of interesting because I thought that just in my experience with the three beers, I've always thought that like Miller Lite and Bud Light taste almost the same, and Coors Light is like a little bit different. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to me that Bud Light's not. Maybe they used to. Maybe they've changed it. I don't know. But but yeah, they use rice, which is not a whole lot better than using corn syrup. So I don't.
Oh, but it sounds so much better though.
Yeah.
Did you know you're drinking beer with corn syrup in it?
And then
The funny part is like
the corn syrup
the
lobby on
Target.
Twitter gets at them. They're like,
Oh
"Look,
yeah. Oh my
let me tell
God. The
you all the
corn
benefits of
lobby was just
corn."
like, hey, wait a second. What is? I mean, it reminded me of that time. Do you remember when the corn lobby tried to run a series of ads extolling the virtues of corn syrup? Do you remember that? Like, and it
Yeah,
was really short lived. It was like maybe
because
like a week because everybody just like was like, no, this is like bullshit. Like, stop. Like don't try to convince us that corn syrup is healthy because it comes from a vegetable. It's like it's still not
it also
healthy.
comes from like the least healthy vegetable.
Right. It's like, I mean, it's a vegetable that's pretty much entirely sugar to begin with, which is why it's good.
It's
So like
delicious.
when you're grilling on the barbecue and you throw it on the grill and you get that nice little, charred look on it because the sugar's starting to caramelize a little bit. It's
Or
perfect. It's
or you get
great. It's
that the
just like,
Mexican version where they put the cheese
yeah,
on it.
heck yeah. Just don't try to tell me it's healthy. Like, come on, man. Anyway, I don't know. I just thought it was funny because like, Coors Light, Miller Lite, Bud Light, their target demographic, which I assume is like middle-aged or younger people. I mean, are these people that really care if corn syrup's in their beer?
Yeah,
Like, is
so
that
like
is that a
they're
deciding
like
factor?
putting down all sorts of processed food during the game. Like
Right.
like all this food with like corn syrup and high fructose corn syrup in it. Like when I went to school, I had a friend whose dad was allergic to corn syrup, and like he could eat almost nothing. Like we're all eating corn. Like all your
Right.
drinkers are eating shit with corn syrup in it. They don't
It's
care if
in
there's
every.
corn syrup in their beer.
Yeah.
So this is what's funny is like they've went from a few years ago. They made that ad of like beer brewed the right way, and like they made fun of like craft beer drinkers and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And they've realized that that's not like you're not going to shame a craft beer drinker into like, oh, I should stop drinking this stout and I should pick up this uh, adjunct lager. Like you're not shaming
Right.
them into like drinking your beer. but you can between the Miller Lights and the Bud Light, like those. If there's someone that isn't like a straight up like I'm always a Bud Light, always a Coors Light like guy, you still have some
Right.
way. And so maybe I'm thinking they're probably targeting that younger kind of like educated demographic, like those kids that are in school and
Maybe.
who like are like, oh my God, corn syrup is the worst. And so they're just gonna be like, yeah, I'm not drinking Bud Light. It's got or Miller Lite. It's got corn syrup in it. So
I
you
guess. I mean, but
to
we
get
were
them
all drinking
young,
Bush
and
Light, right? Like we're like not even like Bud Light was too pricey. We're
I
going
don't
for
know,
Bush.
because if you want to be fancy though,
I
dude, I
guess,
got
man.
the Bud Light pitcher, man. I spent $4 extra.
I know. Like I don't know. I don't
Bush
know.
Light
It
definitely.
seemed like a
Bush Light
weird way to.
almost certainly has corn syrup in it.
Oh, for sure. But it's like, I just found it like a really funny way to try and distinguish yourself from a beer that basically tastes. And I guess that's the trick, right? You're trying to
Well,
distinguish yourself from
to
another beer that tastes almost exactly the same.
to their credit, like how they have distinguished them, these three beers have distinguished them in the past, are just like total nonsense things, which aren't actually distinguished. So like, I think it's Miller Lite that says they're like triple hopped.
Right,
So
right.
every beer is like almost every beer is triple hopped because you throw hops in right at the start of the boil, and those are your bittering hops. You throw hops in the middle, and those are your kind of your flavoring hops, and you throw hops in at the end, they're more of your aromatic hops. So like all those beers were doing that. Like when they say they're triple hopped, and then you'd have Coors Light, and they say they're cold
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 filtered.
brewed, cold filtered. No, first of all, you're not cold brewed. Like that's nonsense. That's literally impossible. You can't
But the beer is as cold as the Rockies. How do they do it?
you're getting no alcohol in it if you're not boiling it. Like that's not happening. But
Right.
but what they're getting at is they lager. They'll say they cold lager. Well, that's the point of lagering.
Right.
Lagering is at a lower, colder temperature than when you make an ale. Like it's at a like so. Yes, you make a lager. That's exactly the point.
That's what
Like
you're doing.
Bud
That's how
Light
you do it.
and Miller Lite do the same thing. Like so
Right.
that's why I give some credit at least to Bud Light in this time is that they're actually pointing out a different ingredient. So it's an actual difference rather than like just something they're just trying to like play on some words and like make someone think something is unique when it's not at all.
By the way, if you have your choice, if you are at a bar and the only thing they have is Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Light, which one are you choosing?
Oh man.
Okay, it's a
Probably
tailgate,
Miller Lite.
and you've got Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors
Probably
Light.
Miller Lite.
Me too. I've always thought Miller Lite was okay,
Yeah.
and I don't know why, but I've always felt
It was
like it
triple
had a
hop,
little
man.
different flavor. That's probably what it is.
I
It's
can't deal
probably
with that cold filtered shit. I want it triple hop.
my dad my dad's like my dad is the pretty classic light beer drinker, where he's like the colder the better because he doesn't actually want to taste it.
Oh yeah.
you know
Those beers are made for that.
I know, he's like, he pulls out his Coors Light. The mountain is blue, I can drink it now.
Oh yeah. That was some genius
It's
ass
cold enough,
marketing.
that way I won't have
That
to taste.
that was some genius marketing.
It was, though. It really was. I mean, there's a reason why all these ad companies make all the money they make, man. They're not idiots. They're smart. They
Yeah.
they know how to they know how to do a thing, man.
I can't remember the next one is like there's like now with ours is made with alcohol. Like just like something that's obvious. Like
Right?
wait, are the other ones not?
Yeah. We have alcohol.
All right.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think of I don't have a lot of good stories about my kids this week. My kid,
Your
but
kid.
we do have two extra dogs in the house
Oh,
because Amanda's parents, who went with us to Australia, in their retired life, just went with Australia, just got back in December. We're already itching to get out of here. are in Costa Rica now. So that's the life I want to live.
Yeah, no kidding.
But so we have their dogs, um, which like is fine. They're all little dogs, but they like when they just all want to sleep on the bed, it's like, oh my God. And then one of the dogs is getting up there in age and he's having some tough time walking around. And the first night he's up, I had a cold and I'm just like having trouble sleeping. He's like trying to like cuddle up on like all up in my face and and he's got this terrible breath and I'm just like, ugh. And so eventually he gets out of bed and he tries to walk down our stairs, but his like old ass legs couldn't do it. And we just hear him tumble and he like bangs against the like baby gate we have up at the bottom of the stairs. We don't have one at the top yet because the baby doesn't mostly just goes in her crib on the upstairs. So but so we kind of, I felt horrible. Like this dude like he doesn't even yelp or anything. Like he's just an old dog. He's like, I don't know what's going on. And he's been like growling at B randomly, and then he'll go and sit on her, like cuddle with her, like the next second. So B's just all confused. Like she's had great relationship with dogs so far. She loves dogs, but this dog is just throwing her off. And like he just earlier today, I think I was on a work call or something, but I come out and I heard her start crying and Amanda's like, oh, from like across the room, she looked at this dog wrong and he growled. He just like was kind of sleeping, but opened his eyes and looked at her and growled from like 20 feet away. And she started crying. So he's got her like trained to just be like, in a couple of days, to be like, no, don't fuck with me. Like I'm old. Like
That's
just
right.
leave me
And
alone.
grumpy.
If I want to be around you, I'll come up. But otherwise, just I know you're little and annoying. I see how you pull on the other dog's ears. Just leave me alone. Like it's been interesting adjusting to that. Like we've had to like sleep in separate beds just to, like split up the dogs because like they're just too annoying to like deal with. Like so I'm looking forward. I like the dogs, but I'm looking forward to Amanda's parents coming back and we can send them home.
Man, wait till you get a second kid. Then it's just like so right now my two younger kids are fighting about room situation. My middle son Tristan is um dismayed with his younger brother who of course like his younger brother just adores him, right? Like that's the way this works, right? The youngest little brother looks up to his big brothers, thinks they're great. Well, of course, the only way he knows to express his affection is to pester them, right? And so
Right.
Tristan is right now he is just like transfixed on going to getting his own bedroom because right now we share. So we live in kind of an older house, and back in the day on the house is about 50 years old. Um, there wasn't really a premium placed on bedrooms. Not like modern day houses where you go and it's like, oh, house is, 3,000 square feet with, 5 bedrooms or whatever, right? Or 4 bedrooms and a den or something, right? So this house is 3,200 square feet, but it's only actually got 3 bedrooms. Like it's got a basement, and the basement is finished, but none of those are really bedrooms.
Yeah.
There's like a TV room. Well, you've been here, but there's, for the listeners who haven't, there's like a TV room. There's like another room that's kind of like a hosting room that heads out to the back patio area. There's like a bonus room where the kids like kind of hang out and play their video games and everything. And then there's an office, and it's a pretty good sized office, which that could be converted to a bedroom. But I'm like, I'm not really wanting to lose my office, right? So that one of my kids can have a bedroom. So my youngest and my middle share a bedroom, and he is just like Tristan is just like, man, I am so done with sharing a bedroom with my brother. Like he just won't leave
Yeah.
me alone. He won't leave my stuff alone. He crawls into my bed. He blah blah blah. And of course Tristan's 9, right? So 9, the appropriate 9-year old like gravitas of it's a very serious situation. And Sarah and I, my wife Sarah and I are just looking at each other, just going like we both had to share bedrooms with siblings when we were growing up, and we lived in houses that were like less than half the size of this house. And it's like, listen, pal, if you want to go someplace and be away from your brother, there's about 18 different places in this house you could go. Plus, we live on an acre, so you can go anywhere you want outside. And it's like, oh, man, he's messing with me in my bedroom. I'm like, bro, you better go talk to somebody else if you're looking for sympathy. So, and I know you didn't grow up in a very big house either. So it's like,
No.
it's like kids these days, man, they are spoiled rotten.
Yeah, dude, I swear they're all the worst. They're gonna ruin this country,
Yeah.
and it won't be our fault.
No, we will have raised them right, and it'll be, I don't know, man. The kids these days,
There's
so
nothing you can
spoiled.
do. There's nothing you
No,
can do.
no.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like a good place to stop.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you like I said at the start, if you like what you're listening, whatever you're listening on, give us 5 stars. Subscribe. Keep listening, man. Tell your friends. Tell them we don't care, and
Yeah.
then maybe they'll listen. No, but yeah, appreciate y'all that are listening. We'll keep putting this out here. It's pretty easy for us, so we don't really care.
We
Jeff,
don't.
do you care?
Nope, I don't care. But thanks for listening.
Yeah, we do have egos.
Yeah. It's more fun when people listen.
It is. It is. Yep. Yeah. And once again, thanks, Mom, for listening. Probably has like 100 Stitcher accounts or something, and is juicing the numbers. But yeah. So thanks again. We will be back next week talking about all your favorite things like WSU basketball and maybe even beer. I think we'll probably keep doing that. Yeah. So have fun watching those Cougs this weekend.
That's right. Go Cougs. Over under 50. I'm taking the over.
All right. Hey, I said 47.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone. Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.